Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Justin Wells, got Charlie Williams. It's another edition of Recruiting Intel. But before we go any further, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We got a bunch of great stuff coming this week and every week here covering Texas football. Make sure you sign up for InsideTexas.com. Use the promo code IT1 and get 2 months of access for just $1. It gets you all the way basically through official visits. You're going to want to stick around after that for the big official visit weekend. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the 2025 running back recruiting picture. Tashard Choice is after some of the top rushers in the country. He already has a stacked room, and those two factors have interplay with each other and have an effect on how the Longhorns are recruiting running back. We'll also look at Texas' top targets at defensive tackles. So, Justin, the running back part of this has to do with some increased intrigue for Jordan Davison out of Mater Dei in Los Angeles, looking a little bit closer at Ohio State, but also some news, recruiting news based off of what happened at LSU this past weekend.
So the LSU Tigers got a commitment, their second of the 2025 cycle, in TJ Lindsey. I believe he's out of Alexandria, Louisiana. That's noteworthy because this is what we like to call the domino effect. With Jordan Davison trending to Ohio State right now, Texas still has a handful of guys on the hook that they're interested in with offers. And James Simon out of Shreveport Calvary Baptist is one of those guys. And so for a long time, I think Simon really wanted that LSU offer. You know, grow up in Louisiana, that's kind of natural. Hell, I think it's the law in some places. But when Lindsey jumped in the boat, it opened Simon's eyes. And what's funny is we've seen a little correlation now, whereas Tashard Choice, the running back coach at Texas, has picked up his contact with James Simon. And I talked to Simon last night, or Sunday night rather, and he had basically told me, you know, I'm looking for a coach where I can have a great relationship. And he's like, I think Coach Choice is probably the best when it comes to the relationship part and development. And so now James Simon's going to be on campus for the spring game, April 20th. Then he'll return for his official visit on June 21st to the 23rd. He does not have any other schools scheduled for an official visit. He told me he doesn't have any plans for any other ones right now. That could change, but just from a bigger fact pattern standpoint, I think the depth chart is something that Jordan Davison is not a fan of in Austin, and for good reason. I mean, they've added two backs 3 consecutive years, and they're all being developed and all playing pretty well at this stage, so that's understandable. James Simon does not care about the depth chart. He just wants to get there and compete. And he loves Austin and he loves Coach Choice. And so right now, the running back picture is starting to become a little bit more clear. You got Ricky Stewart already, tailback out of Chapel Hill, and Tyler. James Simon looks like he might be, you know, the next up if Jordan Davison doesn't work. Now, remember, Davison told us, you know, after his trip last weekend or weekend before last that, you know, Texas reminded me I'm their priority. I'm number one on their board. But we know that he's been to Ohio State a handful of times. We know that they just hired Carlos Lockton, which was really a big factor, I think, because he had already had a long-term relationship with him at Oregon. And so now as the running back picture starts to become a little bit more clear, James Simon is the name Texas fans really need to get to know.
I think you covered it pretty extensively, but the switch of Carlos Lockton from Oregon to Ohio State, in addition to the depth chart concerns that you mentioned, probably something that Lockton, whether at Oregon or Ohio State, mentioned to Davison. But that switch, that relationship, a domino that happened when Tony Alford went from Ohio State to Michigan, that seems to be playing a big factor in why Davison's looking a little bit more closely at Ohio State, a school he already liked a lot, correct?
Yeah, listen, it was Texas and Ohio State even as little as a month ago. It really was. Those are the two schools that if you talk to him, he mentioned the most. But I'll never forget when it was tweeted out that Alford took the Michigan job, I had hit up Davison and he hit me back with an emoji. And I don't know what any of these things mean, but it was something like covering up his face. So I'm just going to say that he was confused. I'm going to say that was the confused emoji. And I said, you know, how's this going to affect your recruiting? He said, man, I don't know about Ohio State. I don't know now. So that was relevant. And then as soon as Lockton came through, they had Davison's attention because they literally hired a guy that had built a relationship a year and a half before with him at Oregon. You know, he's a West Coast kid. all those West Coast schools have known about him for forever. And so that's a big thing. He really liked Al Alford. Heads to Michigan. I don't see him going to Michigan. I see Ohio State kind of taking the lead, especially with Lachlan. Texas isn't going to stop fighting for this guy. They're not going to stop trying to get an official visit and continue to recruit. We know how Choice is, but like I said, the depth chart is something that Davison's paying attention to, and the fact that Ohio State was able to hire a running back coach that he already had a previous relationship with just doubled down on the Buckeyes. You add that to the depth chart, the double down. That's where that trend line is going, and all of a sudden, James Simon becomes much more important.
Now, Charlie, when you look at the James Simon situation out of Calvary Baptist from Shreveport, Louisiana, I think you were able to catch up with him a little bit and have had some communication as well, in addition to Justin. When you're selling a 2 running back class after another 2 running back class, what are some of the issues, and why does it sound like James Simon just maybe not to say ignoring it, but just saying, I'm ready. I can do this. I can play, and the depth chart doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, it really depends. Sorry, it really depends on the kid and his mental makeup, right? You don't want to have your legs used a lot in college if you don't have to. So knowing that, hey, Texas is going to have 2 running backs drafted per year and not have to, have so much wear and tear, that's a plus for me if I'm a running back. I can still come there. I can still produce and be used in a lot of ways to get drafted without having a lot of wear and tear. I think that's very important to each kid, right? Because the ultimate goal is trying to make it to the NFL. And so coming to a system that, you're going to come to a coach who can develop you, a system that uses you, man, it's just the perfect fit. But some kids want to be that bell cow and get the most of the carries and, don't worry about wear and tear so much. I think it just really depends on the kid and his mental makeup of, what he sees his future like.
So looking at LSU's class, they have Harlem Berry, who's the number 16 overall prospect. As mentioned, they have JT Lindsey, who's the number 400 overall prospect. You don't typically take a 3 running back class unless you have dire numbers at the position, and I don't think LSU has that. So when you think about that, Coach, what's it like recruiting a kid from, Shreveport, Louisiana, which still on the I-20 corridor, not the same as the, South Louisiana, when you're recruiting a kid who kind of has a natural in-state maybe tendency, and now that tendency, that lean, there's no room for him. How do you kind of attack that as a staff, especially if you're one like Texas, not too far away from where he's at?
Yeah, you can kind of go back and look at some history, right? Texas used to recruit Evangel Christian out of Shreveport a lot, back in the past with Coach Mack Brown. So not being far from home, it's really not that long of a drive as you think. A lot of us Texans like to refer to Shreveport as deep East Texas anyway, right? So
it is.
It is. So, like if your home state or in-state school don't want you like we want you, right? They're disrespecting you. They don't want you. Just whatever you can do, right, to get that kid to come to Texas. Because ultimately, I'm sure people use that against Texas. Hey, your in-state or your state school didn't want you. Won't you come play for me? So you can kind of just reverse the roles and use that same recruiting pitch to Simon.
Before we keep going, got to get in a word from our friend Andre the Lawyer. Andre the Lawyer is a longtime Inside Texas user. They never take more than their clients. No win, no pay, and no upfront costs. Their principal office is in Dallas, Texas, and they've been representing injured Longhorns throughout the state of Texas. Every client gets a personalized text message number so you can contact the team and get in direct access with your lawyer all day and night. So call Andre the Lawyer at 214-444-8808, whether you're in a car wreck, an 18-wheeler accident, a slip and fall, an on-the-job injury, or a wrongful death. Call Andre the Lawyer at 214-444-8808. We got one more subject to touch on, and that is Texas' top targets at defensive tackle. Justin, there seems to be, obviously, there is Brandon Brown. We have talked about him a lot on this show, a commit out of Melbourne, Florida, O'Galley High School. But the number one guy outside of him, it seems to be Brandon Brown, and his recruitment has been very eventful of late.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say necessarily eventful. I would say he's enjoying the process. This kid committed to Texas sight unseen. That's a little different.
With Brandon Brown.
With Brandon, that's what I'm talking about, Brandon Brown. Yeah. This kid committed, he committed sight unseen. And that only relationship he had was with Bo Davis. I mean, his mother hadn't even talked to the Texas staff by the time he had committed. And so it was a little, this recruitment was a little unusual, but he finally makes it to Austin and loves it. Like, they blew him away. Kenny Baker did a great job. They had a presentation for him. He brought his mom, sister. They had a blast. He went to Houston, worked on some 5-on-5, and got to talk to a lot of other Texas targets. And I think Brandon's happy with his commitment, and I think he could see himself playing at Texas. And I know Austin is about as far as his mom probably wants him to go in regard. So I don't know how much USC is going to be a factor, but he went to USC. He went to Florida. He visited Miami. And then he just hit the spring game at LSU last weekend in Baton Rouge. And so talking to the family there this weekend, they really liked it. Bo Davis' message is, we really need you, Brandon. Like, this roster needs a Brandon Brown. And he's going to get that sell from all the places he goes, especially when he hits those Florida schools. He's close with FSU and Miami and Florida, and those are always going to be factors in this recruitment until the end. They'll be sneaking in visits if they can. But with Brandon, with Texas, just hold on. Basically, that's what they got to do, because, like I said, Baker's established that relationship with him and his family now. Sark they're really big with Sark, and there's some familiar guys around there. There's some guys that they've gotten to know a little bit, and so that, coupled the fact with Texas going to the SEC, that they've got a good shot to hang on to him. But man, it's April, and Brandon Brown's going to take more visits. He's going to enjoy the process. I fully expect him on campus in June for his official visit. And I won't be surprised if he schedules 3 or 4 other official visits. This is going to be one just sort of hang on loosely and watch from a distance.
Now, what about with Zion Williams? Obviously, someone who LSU is also after, but didn't make it to Baton Rouge this past weekend, correct?
He did not. He was planning on going. He went to Texas last weekend before last. And I don't know if one recruit had a better time, on April 6th than Zion Williams. I know his stomach did. I mean, 6,000 calories in one setting is insane. I'm impressed, to be honest with you. Reminds me of that dude from the movie Wildcats. Man, must have ate his parents. No, he didn't make it to Baton Rouge. He didn't make it. And that's a pretty good data point, because he's coming back to Austin this weekend. He'll be on the 40 acres on Saturday for the spring game. And that's the plan right now. And so for Zion, it was all about getting him back to Austin a couple weeks ago, because he had been to Baton Rouge back to back. We have reported, repeatedly, Bo Davis has a lot of stroke in this recruitment. That's the reason Texas looked so good early on. He carried that over to LSU. They had already sold him big on what it's like to be a Bayou Bengal. And so getting him back was big. Getting him back again will be even bigger, because this is not a recruitment Texas can lose, guys. This is if there's a must-get category, Big Z is near the top of that list. 6'5", 315, 320 pounds, moves effortlessly. I think he's got a 38, 39-inch waist. I mean, he looks like $1 million and has a smile to go with it. And so him not going to Baton Rouge, that's a good check in the box. Getting him back this weekend is another check mark that you can put in the box. And this is going to come down to Texas and LSU, guys. Texas A&M's getting an official in June. TCU's getting an official in June. He's taking his official to LSU in early May. To me, that's big. When you can get that last OV, that last sell, that's huge. And so we felt like Texas was sort of starting to what's the word for it? They're trying to hold back the storm, and they did that. Now they're starting to build on a little bit more of that momentum. They want that thing swaying back Austin's way. You get him back on campus this weekend, he has another good time. They feed him like they fed him last time, buffet style. This is going to be only good things for Texas going forward.
So Brandon Brown and Zion Williams kind of seem like the top 2 guys, obviously with Brandon Brown committed and Zion Williams being, priority number 1. But they're also after DJ Sanders, a defensive lineman from Belleville. They're after Myron Charles, 6'4", 300-pounder from Port Charlotte, Florida, who made his way to Austin recently. And then Amir Leonard-Jean Charles from Mount Juliet, Tennessee, in the Nashville area, Lipscomb Academy. But, Coach, you also were able to talk to, I believe, Chase Sims when he made it into town not too long ago, someone from Rosenberg, Randall, and he's also on the Longhorns' radar. Where do you see him, and how do you see him as a player, and where do you see him fitting into this whole picture?
Yeah, another big guy who can move, very athletic. Standing next to him, kind of sizing him up a little bit, like, yo, this kid has some size and room to grow, right? He's a competitor. He's like, if I come to Texas, I want to come here and compete to play. I don't want to come here and just, ride the pine. So you kind of see the competitive edge that he has, the mental makeup that he has. But I can see him as a 3, or he may grow into a 1 tech. Who knows? I think he can be interchangeable, can play either spot, at Texas if he chooses to come here. He had a lot of great things to say about Coach Kenny Baker, just seeing him live, seeing him coach. Loved his energy, loved the way he talked to players and how he develops. And so I guess we have to see how things play out. We know Zion and other guys, but I think it's a guy that Texas likes, and he likes Texas.
The visits are always a fact pattern. Seeing these guys show up for spring practices and then the spring game is going to be something to track, because if they show up to a place more often than others, probably shows a lot of interest. We'll have all of that over on InsideTexas.com. You can head to Inside Texas and get 2 months of Inside Texas Plus access for just $1 if you use the promo code IT1. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming over the course of this next week, between the transfer portal, between spring game prep, between everything going on. We can't wait to get more done. Justin, thank you so much. Charlie, the same. We will see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.